Jeff Bezos' wedding. A spectacle of tacky taste and public fury in. When the fourth richest man in the world decides to get married, you don't just expect a party, you expect a spectacle, a history-making event. Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's wedding in Venice was poised to be just that. A multi-day, multi-million-dollar affair dripping in luxury, set against the backdrop of one of the most romantic cities on Earth. The guest list was a who's who of Hollywood, tech, and politics, ready to descend on the ancient city in a swarm of private jets and water taxis. It was supposed to be a fairy tale, a coronation, the ultimate display of wealth and influence. But what we got instead was a masterclass in questionable taste, a tabloid spectacle that spiraled into a global conversation for all the wrong reasons. From a wedding invitation so widely mocked it became an internet joke to protests that filled the Venetian streets, the Bezos-Sanchez nuptials will be remembered not for their glamour, but for their gaffes. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a cultural moment that exposed the deep, cringeworthy disconnect between the world of billionaires and the rest of us. We're gonna break down every detail, from the clip art invitation to the furious local backlash. Jeff Bezos' lavish Venetian wedding was supposed to be the event of the year, but it started with a piece of paper that had people asking, was this made in Microsoft Paint? We're breaking down how this wedding's tacky invitation and over-the-top flexing turned a billionaire's big day into a symbol of tone-deaf excess. Money can't buy taste. The invitation debacle long before the first guest stepped onto a water taxi, there was a red flag, a piece of paper that foretold the aesthetic chaos to come, the wedding invitation. When you're a billionaire, you might expect an invitation crafted from artisanal paper, maybe hand-delivered by a flock of doves. What guests reportedly received was something else entirely. Leaked images of the invitation revealed a bizarre, jumbled collage of what looked like clip art-style illustrations. There were cartoonish doves, oversized feathers, butterflies, and shooting stars, all chaotically arranged around images of Venetian landmarks. The design was immediately and mercilessly roasted online. "No way this is real. I could have chosen better clip art," one person commented. Another joked, "When you are the richest man on earth but made wedding card via Microsoft Word and Pinterest." The consensus was brutal and swift. The invitation was tacky, amateurish, and looked cheap. It was the kind of design you might expect from a teenager using Canva for the first time, not for a wedding with a reported price tag stretching upwards of $50 million. One commenter perfectly summarized the sentiment, "Just shows you money can't buy taste, even at this level." This initial design choice turned out to be a harbinger of things to come. The invitation set a tone that the rest of the event seemed to follow. While the wedding was set in Venice, a city synonymous with timeless elegance and artistic heritage, the overall vibe of the Bezos-Sanchez celebration felt jarringly out of place. The aesthetic was less Renaissance grace and more new money flash. Commentators pointed out that the over-the-top spectacle felt like a cheap costume layered over a priceless masterpiece. The tackiness wasn't just in the invitation, it was in the very concept. It was a 3-day bonanza that saw the couple and their 200 guests taking over multiple luxury hotels and venues, effectively turning a historic city into their private playground. The entire affair was less a tasteful celebration and more a loud, garish declaration of wealth that seemed utterly tone-deaf to its surroundings. The invitation was just the first piece of evidence in a growing case that this wedding was going to be a masterclass in how all the money in the world can't purchase a shred of subtlety or class. The A-list invasion, a wedding this big, isn't just a party, it's a global event, and the guest list is everything. The Bezos-Sanchez wedding was engineered to be the ultimate meeting of power, fame, and influence. The 200 or so invitations that went out were golden tickets, and the names on that list read like a who's who of right now. The arrival of the guests turned Venice into the Met Gala on water. The canals were suddenly swarming with some of the most famous faces on the planet, arriving in a convoy of around 30 boats. You had titans of entertainment like Oprah Winfrey, tech billionaires like Bill Gates, and Hollywood royalty like Leonardo DiCaprio, who tried to keep a low profile but was spotted nonetheless. DiCaprio, despite his usual aura of chill, raised eyebrows with what some called the yacht incident, reportedly hopping from a party boat to a water taxi in a clearly inebriated state, sunglasses askew, and nearly taking a spill into the canal. The footage, which made its way onto gossip blogs, painted a slightly sloppy picture of one of Hollywood's most elusive stars and added an awkward footnote to an otherwise tightly controlled image of luxury. And then you had the Kardashian-Jenner clan. Kylie Jenner showed up in a silvery blue corset gown that many felt was dangerously close to white, a classic wedding guest faux pas. Wedding Etiquette 101 says never outshine the bride, and some critics felt Kylie crossed that line. Fashion blogs and online commentators immediately called her look attention-seeking and tone-deaf, especially in an event already saturated with spectacle. It wasn't just the color, it was the full paparazzi-ready glam which led many to believe the goal was visibility, not celebration. Her sisters, though less flamboyant in their attire, added to the atmosphere of curated hype that made the entire guest list feel like it was assembled for headlines rather than heartfelt connections. Leonardo DiCaprio, who has built a reputation for avoiding the spotlight at high-profile events, ended up drawing attention for all the wrong reasons. His outfit, an oversized wrinkled button-down shirt, backward baseball cap and dark sunglasses, looked more suited to a beach bar than a billionaire's wedding. He tried to keep things low-key, but witnesses say he arrived late, looking disoriented, and was seen awkwardly stumbling onto a water taxi. The moment was caught on camera, and social media wasted no time turning it into a meme. What was meant to be an effortless, incognito appearance ended up looking sloppy and unprepared, fueling the criticism that parts of the guest list felt more like a celebrity circus than an elegant celebration. Putting up this constellation of stars meant booking out suites in Venice's most famous hotels, like the Cipriani and Gritti Palace. This wasn't just about comfort, it was about creating a bubble of pure exclusivity. The message was clear. You were either on the inside gliding from your five-star suite to a private water taxi, or you were on the outside looking in. This carefully assembled cast of characters was meant to add to the wedding's mystique. But instead of just adding glamour, that intense concentration of celebrity drew a level of scrutiny that would expose the major flaws in the wedding's opulent design. For many, the guest list felt less like a collection of close friends and more like a networking event for the 1%. The gown and the glamour at the heart of any wedding, especially one on this scale, is the bride. And Lauren Sanchez was ready for her close-up. The absolute centerpiece of her look was the wedding gown from the Italian fashion house Dolce & Gabbana, a brand known for being dramatic, opulent, and completely unapologetic. The choice itself said a lot. Dolce & Gabbana isn't for people who want to blend in. The dress was a custom creation with a high neck and long lace sleeves, reportedly inspired by a dress Sophia Loren wore in a 1958 film. However, the public reaction was deeply divided. While some praised the look, others, including journalist Katie Couric, labeled it tacky, with Couric commenting it looked like a return to the conspicuous consumption of the 80s. The dress also became the subject of ridicule after Sanchez posted a photo of herself posing glamorously while two of the brand's tailors stood in the background with somber expressions, a detail that many online called out as a distasteful display of wealth, referring to the workers as the peasants in the back. The whole vibe was supposed to be flawless, but the dress, like the wedding itself, became a lightning rod for criticism. A Vogue cover story featuring the gown, released as the wedding took place, received immediate backlash, with readers accusing the magazine of celebrating obscene wealth and asking if a cover can just be bought. The dress wasn't just a dress, it was a symbol of a moment that many felt was completely out of touch. If you're finding this deep dive into celebrity excess fascinating, and let's be real, who doesn't? Do us a solid and hit that subscribe button. We break down the biggest pop culture moments every week, and you won't want to miss what's coming up next. The cracks in the facade, and here is where the fairy tale starts to fall apart. While Bezos and his A-list guests were living inside a perfect bubble, the wedding was happening in a real city with real problems. The jarring contrast between those two realities is where the dream wedding narrative started to crack and the tacky label began to stick. The issue wasn't the desire for a beautiful wedding, it was what some saw as a profound lack of awareness. Venice is a city in crisis. It's the global poster child for the dangers of over-tourism and is literally threatened by rising sea levels. Locals, who are being priced out of their own city, began protesting, with one activist calling the wedding a symbol of all that is wrong with Venice. The display of limitless extravagance, with over 90 private jets reportedly flying in for the event, struck many as incredibly tone-deaf in a city fighting for survival. For critics, the wedding became a symbol of the massive disconnect between the super-rich and everyone else. It's one thing to have a huge party, it's another to have it on what some people see as the sinking deck of the Titanic. Even other celebrities piled on, with Charlize Theron joking at a charity event, "I think we might be the only people who did not get an invite to the Bezos wedding, but that's okay because they suck." The rumored choice of the reception venue only made things worse. Word was the after-party was held at the Arsenal, a historic complex of old shipyards. To get it ready for a billionaire's party, reports suggested massive temporary structures had to be brought in. The visual was jarring. Instead of blending in with Venice's beauty, the reception felt like a fortified compound. The perception shifted from charming to clumsy, elegant to ostentatious. This is where the critique of tackiness really takes off, not in the decor itself, but in the clumsy, and some would say insensitive, way the event was imposed on its historic and fragile surroundings. A fortress of secrecy, one of the most telling parts of the whole thing, and a key reason it got called tacky, was the obsession with privacy. An obsession so extreme it started to feel like paranoia. Wanting to keep a wedding private is understandable, but the lengths the Bezos party went to created a sense of alienation that just killed the vibe of celebrating in a city like Venice. The best example was that rumored reception at the Arsenal. The massive opaque tents and structures that were erected weren't just for looks. Their main job was to create a shield against the outside world, blocking paparazzi and drones. In effect, they built a fortress. They went to one of the most beautiful open-air cities in the world, just to hide from it. The irony was not lost on anyone. This created a huge us versus them feeling. The wedding wasn't happening in Venice, it was happening next to it. The city and its people were just a backdrop, something to be used for the ceremony and then walled off when it was time for the real party. It sent a message of distrust, treating the very place they'd chosen to celebrate in less like a host and more like a threat. This approach turned what should have been a happy occasion into something that felt cold and sterile. You could argue that true luxury is about being at ease, about feeling at home in the world's most beautiful places. The Bezos wedding, with its fortress-like security, projected the exact opposite. It projected anxiety and a need for absolute control, and for many critics that's the definition of tacky, the kind of wealth that has to build walls around itself. They had all the money in the world, estimated at around $50 million for the event, but it couldn't buy them the grace to just relax and celebrate in the city they chose. A cautionary tale. So, what's the final call on the Bezos-Sanchez wedding? On one hand, it was obviously a personal and happy day for them. They were surrounded by friends in a city they love, celebrating their commitment. From that angle, it was a success. But a wedding this huge is never just a private party. It becomes a public statement, a cultural moment that gets picked apart and judged. The dream was a sophisticated Venetian fairy tale. The reality for a lot of people watching was a tone-deaf show of wealth that felt completely disconnected from the world around it. The event showed the immense power that money can buy. You can reserve historic landmarks, summon the world's biggest stars, and command a city's resources. But it also showed the limits of that money. It couldn't guarantee taste, it couldn't buy awareness, and it couldn't stop the event from being called a tacky nightmare by its critics. The wedding became a modern cautionary tale about celebrity and wealth. It highlighted a growing impatience with huge displays of extravagance that seemed to ignore real-world problems. The story wasn't just about a dress or a venue, it was about the clash between a billionaire's fantasy and a world that's getting more and more critical of that kind of insulated excess. The legacy of the wedding isn't just the romantic photos or the star-studded guest list. It's the questions it left behind about responsibility, taste, and what it even means to celebrate love in an age of such huge inequality. But now I want to know what you think. Was this a beautiful private celebration that was unfairly judged? Or was it a tone-deaf display of wealth that deserved the heat? Let us know your take in the comments below. And don't forget to like this video, and subscribe for more deep dives into the pop culture moments everyone is talking about. Thanks for watching.